This is the Talk Shit, Get Bit podcast, brought to you by Devil Dog Canine, where we talk all things dogs. It's time to get unchained. Here's your host, Michael Parker and Chris.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Talk Shit, Get Bit podcast. I'm your host, Michael Parker.
No, I'm your co-host, Chris.
Chris always has to have that long pause before he says his name. But yeah, today we're gonna talk about various training tools and how to appropriately use them. So I don't know, I guess we can talk about a lot of the main ones. And I guess a good place to start is listing off various training tools, and then we can break that down. So you got like slip leashes, obviously regular leashes and a flat collar, harnesses. Probably talk about some muzzles. I know we've kind of danced around some of these topics in previous episodes, but we'll just dedicate a whole episode to training tools. You got prong collars, e-collars. We can talk about martingales, all those different. That still kind of falls under that slip collar. I don't know. I count martingales along that slip leash, slip collar category. Any that I'm missing offhand that you want to discuss?
No, I mean, I kind of agree with you. The martingale, the slip, the chain, those are all pretty much the same. There's a couple different reasons that they're technically clad. They work the same mechanically, but there's a couple of benefits and cons to each of them. You've got some stuff like you mentioned muzzles, like your anti-pull halter muzzles, stuff like that. I'd like to cover those. I have a pretty strong opinion on those.
Oh, you're talking about gentle leaders?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one. Yep. Yeah. So we're going to cover all of these, and we'll talk about pros, cons, what we like, what we don't like, kind of just give you, that insight into that. I guess let's start with the simple tools: flat collars and a leash. I mean, a flat collar is exactly what it is. That's just like your regular, pet collar. It could be one of those flimsy ones. I say flimsy because they're usually pretty thin, that you get from a pet store, or up to like a 2-inch collar, like a Tactipup collar. One of those ones that we use for protection dogs. Oftentimes, I just put them on my dog to look good because ours all have our brand on it. So I'll put it on there for that reason. But also, having that 2-inch collar, my one for my protection dog has a handle in case I needed to do some bite work or grabber or something during that. But I think one of those things that they're a good tool if you have control over your dog, right? Like, I could take my dog and put her on a flat collar with a leash and be just fine, versus, a dog that pulls or is fearful. One of the biggest concerns and one of the biggest reasons we won't use a client's flat collar is most of the time they're too big. They have them super loose on the dog to where, if the dog decides to try to pull backwards, they can slip right out of it. And then now you got to play catch with your dog. I think that's kind of one of those downsides. They're not good if you're trying to stop a behavior, like give a leash pop. You can, but it's going to be very dramatic to give an appropriate level of correction, a fair correction. So don't like using it for that. The leash aspect, God, that's a whole topic of itself. You want to talk about flat collars before I address the leash part?
Yeah, so I agree. That's one of the things that I pointed out before. We've touched on experience versus certification. One of the primary schools that I have several of my certifications from trains exclusively on flat collars. And I do agree. It takes a lot more of a firm correction, a lot more pressure, a lot more power, a lot more effort into it to obtain the same result. We specifically start with slip leads. And I'll go ahead and do a shout out. We only use Raider Canine slip leads. They're the only ones we recommend. We sell them, we use them. The Operation Breach that you're a part of, he just sponsored Breach, the service dog. So he's a veteran. He hand makes them at his home. Very, very good, very high quality stuff. But the key to them is because you can go to Tractor Supply and get a slip lead. You can go to Walmart and get a slip lead, but they're that big, round, goofy looking rope stuff. These are 550 cord, so they're thin and they really lock good behind the jaw and behind the ears. They stay in position. They're really good quality and they hit that specific point that you need. You can issue a correction with very minimal effort, not have to worry about any kind of esophageal damage. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff because you're using the appropriate tool for the job. My dog's the same way. Both of my primary dogs, I can issue a correction on a flat collar, but they're already trained.
I mean it's a great tool if your dog's already trained, right? Like, I mean, if I'm taking my dog out off leash, I'm gonna put my 2-inch collar on her just in case, because I might need to grab a hold of something, you know.
When you
Or
mentioned oversized too, that's a huge issue. A flat collar should sit the same place that a slip lead does. A flat collar should sit and stay behind the ears, behind the jaw, high on the neck, and you should just be able to fit, the flat of two fingers under it. And I don't understand. People call us all the time. They're like, "Well, I use the harness because my dog slips his collar all the time." I'm like, if the collar's properly fit, it's anatomically impossible for your dog to slip it because it's the neck is smaller than the head. So I don't understand. And then they get to arguing with me, and then they come in and do an eval, and I show them how their collar's supposed to fit, and they're like, "Oh, that makes a lot more sense."
yeah, I mean, I keep my collar a little looser on my protection dog, right? Like I can fit 4 fingers under it, so I can grab it. But then again, the only time my dog is wearing that is if I need to grab her or I'm doing some kind of bite work, but I'm holding it, right? So it's not going to slip off. And even then, I rarely use it. It's more for decoration most of the time. And the dogs that we do send home that are on flat collars, they're e-collar trained, which is our primary tool that we're gonna use. But we'll talk about e-collars later. You know, talk about the leash aspect and corrections. Like you were saying, it's a lot harder and dramatic with a flat collar. Kind of another thing on that too is I don't like using flat collars on smaller dogs or puppies, because if I go to pop the collar, then I'm gonna to give a fair correction with it. I'm gonna pop that dog halfway across the room, right? It's not a good tool for using for that. But then you get to the leash aspect, and people want to get bungee leashes and stuff like that. Well, if you have a bungee leash, you can't give your dog a correction. Looking out for leashes that have a lot of give to them. I want something that's more rigid, so that way when I do try to give a correction, it's subtle and it's not like if I try to use a bungee leash, I'm gonna have to like rip my arm all the way out, super dramatic, to even make any kind of contact. Which, you know, perception is reality. Did I really just correct the crap out of my dog? No, but it looked like I did, right? And perception's reality. So not a good tool. Now I do own a bungee leash, and the only time I use it is for tactical situations. Like I can clip it onto my plate carrier, so my dog is on leash, so that way, if we're like running along or something, she can be right there with me. She has that little give, but again, she's really good at staying with me. So that's why I'll use it in that situation. But even then, I don't use it most of the time. She's either on my hip lead or off leash with just the e-collar. You kind of already talked about slip leashes. We get ours through we use biothane slip leashes, round tubular biothane slip leashes that we get from our dog shop. What is it? Paw Pack. Oh, let me make sure I don't mess it up. Paw Pack Dog Shop. We use them for all of our branded leashes and slip leashes, slip collars. Theirs work really well. Like you were saying, staying up high. I definitely want to try out your guys' slip leashes, but they shout out to them. They make great slip leads. They stay up high. I've never had any issues with them coming down, sliding down and not staying in position or, choking. But that's one of those concerns with the slip lead. Again, when it's up high, like you said, you don't have to worry about the tracheal issues. However, a lot of people mess it up, right? I don't like just giving a slip leash to a client unless they really, really understand how to use it effectively, right? And that's the key to all of the training tools we're going to talk about is using them appropriately. Any of these tools can be great tools, but also they can be very dangerous regardless of what it is if you don't use it effectively and you don't use it correctly. And slip leashes are one of those where I don't like using them. I don't even with experience, I don't like using them on small dogs again because of just how small their throats are. Same with puppies. On that note too, we teach dogs how to give in to leash pressure. I don't like to teach giving into leash pressure with a slip leash because especially if the dog's going to try to fight it because what happens with that slip leash when they start pulling, it tightens. That's
Yeah.
how it works. And if the dog's fighting that, now we got that risk that the dog chokes itself out, and I don't want that. That's not a good experience for the dog. Not something I want happening. So we won't teach them to give into to leash pressure with a slip leash. Generally, I'll use a prong to teach them how to give into to the leash pressure. And then once they understand that, then yeah, I can transition them to a slip leash because then it's safer at that point. I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so we do use a slip lead for leash pressure, but we're very cognizant on how we do it. So we reward the instant, and it comes down to the timing with us, and that's something that I push my trainers really really hard on is getting that timing down pat. So we'll let the dog get distracted, and then we'll start to just kneel down a little bit or lean back just a hair. As soon as the dog turns to look, because it's going to look to investigate that pressure. So as soon as the dog turns to look, we'll mark and report. Yes, good. And then we start to increase it a little bit, and then a little bit, and a little bit. We train the. I'm real big on say we train the dog in front of us, which we've talked about before. We always start with the least invasive measure available and then go up from there. However, there are certain circumstances like if the client is physically incapable of doing a correction in compulsion style, then we'll go ahead and implement the e-collar and we'll get that going. That's helped several people that I've worked with. If the dog's going to be doing off leash, well, then you need to do an e-collar because that's your only form of control off leash. So, but you're right, the dog has to be acclimated. If you get mad at a dog for not sitting, but you've never effectively taught the dog how to sit, you have no right to be mad at the dog for not understanding it. And it's the exact same when it comes to tools. You can't just go to Tractor Supply or PetSmart and buy a prong collar, throw it on your dog, and expect magic to happen. So you have to know how to use the tools. I had an older female client contact me one day, and she was like, "Hey, tell me real quick how to use a prong collar." And I was like, "Well, it's not a real quick thing." So I actually put together like an 18-minute instructional video with step by step walking through, showing on my dog, demonstrations, things like that, positioning, sizing, measuring, everything. And just to make sure that even if she chose not to come train with us, she was at least, being safe and effective with her dog. So she has since decided to train with us because of that video. But some of these tools are a lot more elaborate than people want to admit. And since we've kind of switched on to talking about prong collar, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I was about to say, good transition into prongs. Biggest thing with prong collars is Well, I mean, there's a lot of aspects to that. I would say the biggest aspects is sizing, getting the right size e-collar or e-collar prong collar for your dog, whether that's a micro, a 2.25 or a 3.0. The quality of that prong, not all prongs are made the same. The only prongs we will use are Herm Springers. We actually exclusively use Katie's buckles, and no, we're not affiliated, so no affiliation there. But we use Katie's buckles because they have the buckle. It's easy for clients to use, especially when we have a lot of older clients or disabled clients. It makes it a lot easier, and it makes the collars last longer because like 2.25s and micros, sometimes those if you're taking those prongs on and off, they bend and over time, and then you run the risk of them falling apart, right? So the buckle, once it's set to size, all I got to do is fasten that buckle every time, unfasten it. But like you said, if you're not using the prong appropriately, it's dangerous. The All of these tools can be dangerous if used inappropriately. But the difference with the prong and using it effectively and correctly, instead of having to like it's always about giving a fair correction. If I'm correcting the dog, the prong giving, I can give the same fair correction with a lot less effort. For example, if a dog's on a flat collar and it's a dog that pulls really hard, to give it a fair correction, I'm going to have to pop that collar really freaking hard where it's going to look extreme and dramatic versus with the prong collar, I can just flick my wrist just a little bit. And just that little flick of the wrist is this equates to the same, right? So again, experience, knowing how much pressure I need to give. A lot of our clients, the other thing I'll say, then I'll kick it over to you and see if anything else pops up because I feel like there's some things to address, still other aspects to address. But one of the things is like, again, where the prong collar sits. Clients will come in, well, my dog's on a prong collar, and it comes in and it's a necklace around their neck, hanging way down here, loose as can be. They can slip it on and off over their head. And I'm like, yeah, that's not working effectively. Let me take a couple links out of this and get it where it's sitting. And then all of a sudden the dog's like, oh crap, I'm paying attention. You got my attention now. I'm like, yeah, like you got to make sure it's sized appropriately and you're using the right size prong. I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, you got to make sure it's the right size. Again, it's going to sit in the same spot that the flat collar and the slip lead sit. So it should be high, should be behind the ears, should be behind the jaw. And on top of that, one thing that I will add, because you mentioned the deteriorating state of the prongs over time, prong collars are notorious for slipping a link with a really active dog, especially if it spins. So something that we teach is to go from the dead end of the collar and hook it with a backup to the flat collar. So you can just use like a regular carabiner. It's like $1 at Walmart. You can get one, throw it on there, hook it to the flat collar, and that way, if the prong collar does fall apart while you're training, at least you still have retention over the dog. So that's
On that
something.
note too, like paying attention when you this is something we tell our clients, make sure that you look at it, make sure everything's situated right before you put it on, because sometimes those prongs get turned weird and then all you go to pop the leash or pop the leash and the whole prong falls off because you didn't make sure it was on there appropriately. We use safety straps. Carabiners work too, but we use little short safety straps with clips, and you clip it to the prong and you clip it to the collar. It's literally what it says, safety straps, so your dog doesn't get away should that prong break off.
Right. And that's another alternative. The carabiners just yeah. I assume when people come to us and have questions about prong collars that they're probably going to be more of a like a carabiner at Walmart person versus a specialty dog training and safety item. But what's your outlook on, so we did slips, we did prongs. I have a very specific reason why we don't use chain collars, the chain choke collars. The the concept is the same as the other ones. It gives that mechanical feeling for, a corrective nip on the neck. However, I have seen dogs anticipate the command based off of the clink clink sound of the chains. I've also seen them do that on pinch collars, but not nearly as much as a chain collar because there's so much extra length in the chain. What's your outlook on chain?
So when I got Levi, my service dog, he was on a chain. That's what he was trained with. So that was my starting point. I think they make good backups, like if you just needed to throw something on there, like taking your dog out off leash. I that's what I used to think. Now I don't even use them at all. And the reason why is I kept it as a backup on my protection dog until one day it slipped up and it got caught in her mouth
Mm.
and was stuck, and I had to get it off and get it unstuck. So I'm not a big fan of chains. And to your point, like I want that tool to sit up high on the neck where it should be. There's not a stopper with chains to keep it where it needs to be. So it often slides down. And then if I pop that chain, I'm popping their throat. So again, back to those potential throat issues. I'm not a big fan of it. I think it has its place. And if you want to use it, I'm not saying you're wrong if you use one. I just personally don't like them. I've used them. I liked them for a while until I saw what could potentially happen. And I'm like, I don't want to risk anything happening. I rather err on the side of caution and safety. So I'm not a big advocate for them, but I'm not against them.
Yeah, I'll keep one in my car just as a, like you said, an emergency or a backup. But I think my biggest, aside from the training issue, I think my biggest turn away experience from chain collars is I was raising puppies, and some of them had been dropped off with chain collars, and not not any fault of the dog, but I got so busy that I went out and checked. I checked collars every week, and I got so busy one time that I went out and checked the collar, and the collar was not too tight, like it wasn't choking the dog, but it was tight enough that it would no longer fit over the head. And I was like, well, that sucks. So I had to get bolt cutters and cut the chain collar off. And that's, which I mean, they were little tiny ones. And so they were easy, but still, that's not something, a slip lead, your dog gets snagged, gets hung up. Flat collar, your dog gets snagged, gets hung up. Prong collar, your dog gets snagged, gets hung up. You have options. You can pop a link loose. You can cut the slip. You can cut the flat collar. A chain collar, I mean, you don't have an option. You have to get bolt cutters to cut that if your dog is hung up. So, I mean, in that case, it's a safety
And
thing for me as well.
most people don't carry bolt cutters with them. I carry a knife so I could cut a slip lead or anything like that, but I don't carry bolt cutters on me on a day to day.
Yeah. No, that is not part of my EDC.
Should
What
be. It's
about
just
so
a
yeah, martingales? I mean, I'm familiar with martingales. I don't have much to share on them because I've never personally used one. And I mean, there's a ton of different collars that we're skipping over, like the fur savers. And I agree with you on the prong, by the way. We only use Hermspringer. They put a lot of research and science into spacing their links the right way. But they've got Hermspringer also has the a flat one with like the sharp teeth on it. So they've got those. They've got those inside of a flat collar. They've got a ton of different collars. So if you want to touch martingale, I mean, you're welcome to.
I was about to say, I mean, it kind of works similar to like using a slip leash. I would say that's probably the best. I would call it like a cross between a slip leash and a prong collar because it works very similar to a prong collar, but with the function of a slip leash, if that makes sense. Like there's not the prongs, it just goes around the neck, but there's the chain that tightens. Pretty much the only time we use those is like we'll either use those or a slip collar when the dogs first get here and we're taking them out going potty. That way they can't slip out. Not we don't really use them for training purposes. It's just more like safety purposes. So a dog doesn't get away, especially a dog that we haven't built that communication system with and don't have that reliability and connection with. But they're not a bad tool. They work well. Again, it's really hard, I think, with those to find the right size to where again it should sit up high on the neck if you're going to use it for training. It's hard to find a size that appropriately fits your dog. So they tend to sit lower on the neck. So they work great as like a backup so the dog doesn't get away. Is what I would say. But yeah, I don't really use them for training at all. I know you mentioned gentle leaders or whatever term you called them. We call them gentle leaders. I guess we can talk about that next. I will say this is the tool that I am the least a fan of. You will never catch me using a gentle leader on a dog. I'm sure you probably have more experience with them than I do, so I'll let you kind of touch on their function and use.
Yeah, I mean, gentle leaders, halters, they're pretty much all the same concept. I'm against them. Again, same as you. You'll never catch me using one. I don't think that they don't do anything to naturally communicate to the dog. So the dog pulls, it yanks its face down. What aspect have you ever seen that in real life? And on top of that, the massive risk of injury to the dog. So a lot of people, when they look at those and they start to criticize them, they're like, "Yeah, you can't correct the dog on a gentle leader, on a halter muzzle." You're right, you can't. If you're using compulsion, you cannot correct them because if you snap it, it's going to snap the dog's head. But what about if you're not correcting the dog? What if the dog takes off running? Now, instead of getting a correction and self-correcting, the dog's face is yanked to the side. And it's no different than jamming a bite dog. You can't, I'm 110% against them. I don't think that they should ever be used. There's no place for them. And they have absolutely zero communication properties.
Yeah, it's the risk of using them. Like if like you said, the dog takes off or you use it inappropriately, dude, you're gonna mess up their nose. Two, there's the possibility of neck injuries. Like I can't find any benefit to using a gentle leader. People say, "Oh, it looks less scary and harmless," but I'm like, yeah, looks are deceiving. That is a very dangerous piece of training tool. I I'm just not a fan of them whatsoever. The same as those, kind of similar to those ones that I forget what they're called, but they go around the front legs. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I can't think of
Yeah.
what
They go
those are
around the
called.
front legs and run up under it.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't like those either. I don't remember what they're called. I've only seen them a couple times. And I'm like, yeah, why don't you just teach your dog how to walk better? Why don't you just build communication with your dog and not have to use that? I don't know, it just looks awkward and painful, and I really don't see any benefit to it.
It's a dangerous shortcut, is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, don't take shortcuts. I think that's kind of leads into to harnesses, which
Mhm.
we've already kind of briefly talked about. I'm going to say there's three reasons why I would put a harness on a dog: agitation, a sled dog, or a service dog. Which, note on the service dog one, I'm never hooking up to it. It's just there to denote that my dog is a service dog, even though legally my service dog does not have to wear any indication. That's more for the idiots out there that can't leave my service dog alone. Which, well, I guess in some situations a harness is needed, mobility, seeing eye dog, such forth. But, like psychiatric tasks and things like that, my dog doesn't need a harness. But the people that put it on there, well, it's safer on the dog. No, it's not. I've seen dogs literally choking themselves on a harness. We trained this little dog one time. She had him on a
Mhm.
harness, and she's like, "Well, he kept choking on the flat collar." I was like, "Well, he's choking on the harness. He's pulling probably twice as hard as he was on the that, and he's literally sitting there choking because he's pulling himself." I'm like, "You're not doing yourself any benefit using a harness." And actually, you're doing the opposite. Harnesses are made to encourage pulling. I see these things about no pull harnesses and such forth. I'm like, the people that buy into that, I'm like, dude, you guys need to do some research. Like, dogs have what's called opposition reflex. So what that means is if I pull on them, they're going to pull even harder. I have no control over a dog that is on a harness. That dog is in the driver's seat. You have no control over it. Again, that's why we use it for agitation and bite work, is because I can pull back, and guess what that dog does? It's going to pull in even harder. So I'm using it there to encourage the dog to push in. That's what I want. But with a pet dog, I'm not trying to fight my dog on every walk I go on by putting it on a harness and letting it drag me. And then people want to be like, well, it just drags me everywhere. Well, you have it on a harness. Step one, take it off the harness. Even a flat collar would be better than a harness at that point. So yeah, not a fan at all, if you can't tell, of harnesses either. I put them just below gentle leaders on my list of don't use tools.
Yeah, I would add one reason to harnesses to your list, and that's tracking.
Yes, I was
Again,
just thinking about that,
yep.
tracking or scent detection.
And again, that's where you want your dog to pull. We get people all the time that come in with the pet dog clients and they're like, yeah, my dog's on a harness. Same thing. My dog's on a harness. It chokes itself on a flat collar, or it slips the flat collar. So it's on a harness. And I don't understand why I can't get it to pull or stop pulling. Harnesses are designed to stay off of the points for dogs to allow them to comfortably pull. Look at sport weight pulling dogs. What do they wear? Harnesses. Sled dogs, harnesses. All the dogs that their job is to pull shit, they're in a harness. So yeah, I mean, if you're putting your 20 pound or 40 pound lab in a harness, it's probably going to pull you. As far as the agitation, we'll do the same thing, but it's dog dependent. I worked a dog with bite work agitation and bite building today about this evening, and we put the dog in a harness and it was properly fit. I fit it after we started messing with it, and it was snapping at the end of the leash so hard and pulling that it was choking itself out on a harness. So that's where I use bungees. So I'll use either a spring chain or I'll use a bungee leash or a bungee line so they can get that tension to shoot them forward into the opposition reflex. But no, I'm the same way. I have a harness for Cooley, but it's specifically for tracking.
Yeah, I have a couple different harnesses for Padme. I've got an agitation harness. I've got my tactical harness, which I guess that would be the other situation. My Ray Allen. It's got the clips, so and I have clips on my chest rig, or not chest rig, plate carrier, so I can clip her in there if I needed to carry her along with the Swiss seat that attaches to it. So keep her rear end up, so that way if I'm doing need to carry her, I can just clip her in and carry her and go. But also I keep it on her for like at night. I've got IR light on it so I can keep track of her with the nods and see where she's at, right? But again, it's working dogs. Working dogs is pretty much the only reason that you like a working dog should be about the only reason you have a harness on your dog, whether it's service dog, protection dog, scent detection, tracking, sled dog. Those are the only reasons that a harness should be on your dog. Or you got it on them trying to give them a workout, pulling parachutes or one of them doggy sleds. Those are the only legit reasons to have a harness on your dog. Muzzles. I know we've kind of talked a little bit about muzzles in the past with with like protection dogs and such forth. That's not the only use for muzzles though. And there's so many different kinds. You know, you have agitation muzzles, you have bite proof muzzles, you have mesh muzzles, throw
Basket
some more out
muzzles.
there, basket muzzles, muzzles for everything, and making sure that if you're using a muzzle, you're using the right kind, right? I keep basket muzzles and a couple different size mesh muzzles and like my emergency kit for my canines. I have three of the most common sizes of basket muzzle in there, so I can throw a muzzle on them. That's more for like if there's an injury or something, I could throw that on the dog because even if it's a dog that doesn't bite, when it's in pain, it might bite. So I'm going to throw that on there for my safety, the dog's safety, other people's safety. I keep a couple different size mesh muzzles just in case one of those basket muzzles doesn't work. Moving into like bite proof muzzles, most commonly, well, I can use them for protection dogs, right? And doing like doing muzzle fighting. That kind of hurts a little bit getting smashed into by a metal bite proof muzzle. Generally, though, using the bite proof muzzles, I'm working with dogs that want to bite me, and I'll put those on just for safety. Like if I know it's a dog that's a bite risk, put that bite proof muzzle on so I don't have to worry about it. I can still give them snacks and stuff through it. Snacks, I can give them treats through it. Yeah, it's a snack, whatever. Agitation muzzles, you got different kinds. You got leather. I think they make them out of other materials too. All the only ones I have are leather though. And those again are for bite work protection dogs. They allow the dog to breathe, but also keep me safe if I'm working the dog to where I'm not going to get bit. Same with any other tool, though. I got to make sure that it's sized right, it's fitted right, that it can't just slip off the dog's head. With muzzles, there's the extra step of if the dog's gonna like say it's a dog that's gonna bite me or such forth, I have to condition the dog to wear the muzzle. So that's one of those differences with that is, you know, if I just throw a muzzle on a dog that's never worn it before, the first thing it's gonna do is try to rip its face off to get it off, right? So you gotta condition and train the dog to be okay wearing a muzzle. Now, with that said, in an emergency, I can throw the muzzle on the dog, but if it's like a protection dog or a dog that's going to bite us, like I will literally tell clients before they bring the dog, I'll be like, you need to get a bite proof muzzle. They have to pay for it and send it, and they have to condition the dog to wear that muzzle before it even comes. And then when they drop the dog off, it's in the muzzle again, just for safety reasons. I don't know. Am I missing anything there?
No, I mean you pretty much hit them. I do the same thing. So my kit, I've got two first aid kits in my vehicle. One is in my get home bag. The other one is in my dog box. And then I've got a big first aid kit here at the kennels. And all three of them have the three main sizes of your mesh muzzle. They're small, they fold up, they're compact. Same thing if we're doing anything with the dog. And it doesn't have to be trauma or emergency related. I mean, if you're going to cut your dog's nails and you have a bite dog, even if you know that dog, it's probably a good idea to muzzle your dog. Because if you accidentally quick that dog, it may bite you. I know that from experience. And you want to make sure that you use the appropriate muzzle for that. So we had a bite dog that we didn't have a mesh muzzle. We were still coming up. We hadn't really gotten a bunch of stuff together. But what I did have was a reinforced patrol muzzle. So it had the metal bar in it and it was used for muzzle fighting. And we went to cut a Dutch Shepherd's nails that was explosives detection in a bite dog. And we put that muzzle on her. And she turned around and very, very calmly, after she got quicked, very calmly looked at the groomer and muzzle punched her right in the eye socket. So make sure that you use the right type of muzzle for the right type of job. You know, if you have a dog, you've got your wire basket muzzles too. Those are pretty handy to keep on hand. I think that with some of our behavior modifications, we haven't done that yet, but I think it is something that we've discussed implementing. The problem is by the time most of our behavior mods come to us, it's already at a point where the owners are damn near not even able to get near the dog. But no, I think you covered muzzles pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I on my plate carrier, I have a canine first aid kit, and then I have a drop pouch, that a dangler pouch that I keep my leashes, and I keep a bite-proof muzzle in there, again, just in case of emergency. But yeah, make sure you're using the right muzzle for the right job. Basket muzzles are not bite-proof, so yes, they work for like vet visits and stuff like that, but still keeping in mind that, there's still the potential to get bit with a basket muzzle on. Yeah, we started implementing that probably about 7, 8 months ago, just because I got tired of fighting off dogs that wanted to eat me. And I was like, yeah, you just order your dog a muzzle before it comes. I mean, I've been bit a few times and not a fan of it, but it's kind of like it's part of the job. But if I don't have to get bit, I'm all about not getting bit. So, again, my safety, the dog safety, everybody else around safety. Let's see, what other tools are there? Are we missing any e-collars? We didn't talk about e-collars yet. Again, another tool that can be great benefit, but if you use it wrong, you can do serious injury with it. We personally use e-collar technologies, the mini educator 300. That's the one we use. We like that. They're not the most high end. There's ones that are more expensive, like Dogtras are a little more expensive. Garmin's, those also have the GPS function. E-collar technologies is good, middle of the road, works very well, but lower price point. Oh my gosh, it irks me when people are like, oh yeah, I'll be like, hey, we use e-collars. And they're like, oh yeah, we have those for our dog. And I'm like, what brand? And they're like, Sport Dog, or I don't know, I got it from
Amazon.
Walmart or Amazon. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're not using that. I'm like, it has 5 levels. You're frying the shit out of your dog. Like, no. The e-collar technologies go from 0 to high, which is 100. So I can get that really fine-tuned, accurate level. And again, we don't use e-collar as correction. The way that we use it is for communication. So it's like if I was trying to get Chris's attention and he's like zoned out, I can tap him on the shoulder so that he's paying attention to me. Same thing with the dog. It's just a way for the dog to know that I'm communicating with it. That's how we use it. I know a lot of trainers that use it as a correction tool. That's how we used to be until we learned that, hey, I can use this for communication instead, and it works a lot better. Again, if you're using it wrong, you're damaging that relationship with the dog. One thing that we talk about is timing and consistency. If my timing is off and I'm using the e-collar as a correction and I'm correcting the dog for doing the right thing and I'm correcting them too high, I'm ruining any training and even that relationship with that dog, right? So great benefit if used appropriately, very detrimental if used wrong. That kind of ties into the invisible fences. Not a fan of those. Those things are freaking terrible. I worked on a ranch once and they had me put in one for the ranch dogs. And of course they wanted to try it out and know what it was like. And it went from 0 to 5. 0 was just a tone and a vibrate. 1, I was like, okay, I can kind of feel that. Bro, I turned it up to 2 and it locked my whole entire arm up that the only way I could get like that collar out of my hand was I had to like with my arm numb throw the collar up in the air. I launched it about 40 feet in the air and I was like, "Oh my God, that's 2. I don't want to know what 5 feels like." Like
Hmm.
those those are terrible. I rather just teach my dog how to recall and boundary, like I can teach boundaries with an e-collar. I don't need that. Like our yard is only like 75% fenced, but my dogs know where the boundaries are and they won't even go through the gaps because I've taught them again using e-collar, hey, yep, nope, don't go that way. To where they'll run around and they'll go right to the edge, but they won't go past it because they know that's past the boundary that they're allowed to go to. So I don't need a fence like that, you know? Like my dogs understand the boundaries because I taught them that again through consistency.
Yeah, and something that's important to note, especially for anyone who's listening that does working dogs, we've mentioned training logs, records, how they affect things in court. If you don't use the Educator Series e-collar, make sure that in your records or your notes that you state that you use an electronic trainer. E-collar is actually a trademark term, and it's owned by Educator. It's e-collar
Sure.
technologies.
Yeah.
So like we use, that's something that I've had to start drilling into the handlers here because we use dog trail. So that's the one that we use exclusively. We don't recommend anything other than that. I don't have anything against the functionality of the Educator series. What I don't like is the remote. I don't like that
That's
the
true.
circle. I don't like that if you have it on that lanyard. One, if you don't have it on a lanyard, that means that you're probably carrying it, which means that you've lost a hand. If it is on a lanyard, and I did this to one of my trainers earlier. Yeah, okay, so he's holding it up. He's holding the remote up. It's circular. It's on a swivel with a D ring. The
Yep.
problem is if anything happens and it spins in your hand, your muscle memory prevents you from being able to find the difference between the boost button and the vibrate button.
Hmm. I'm pretty familiar with this. I can hold it either way, and I know exactly where it is.
You also work hundreds of dogs every month.
Yeah, exactly.
But
So
a
a
normal
normal
person
person, yeah. But
would not.
I don't even like the lanyard because then people just hang it around their neck and I'm like, well, we're using it for communication, so it really should be in your hand
Yeah,
so you can communicate. Again, though, like I have it on my dogs. I have the level of communication with my dogs that they listen when I tell them anything because again, thousands of hours of training into them. But even then, sometimes like my protection dog, bomb dog, wants to be an asshole and not listen to me. So I got to grab the remote, be like, hey, or if she's starting to fix it, hey, pay attention. Or if she's on a bite and she's not, I
not
tell her to
outing.
out and I can tap it, be like, hey, out.
Yeah,
And she'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, sorry, I wasn't listening. But again, she's fixated on the bite and taking down that target. So again, I can use this as like a poke, like, hey, I don't use a breaker bar or anything like that to get her out. I just use the e-collar and until she's like, oh, until she hears me. But yeah, no, I don't like the round. The only nice thing about the round aspect is like in a tactical situation, it fits perfectly in a grenade pouch. So I use a grenade pouch to hold my e-collar remote. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the lanyard. That's why I put like a ring that you would use for keys and attach a carabiner to it. So that way I can clip it to my belt and then it's right there. I don't like things hanging around my neck. I think dog trails are good. What used to be my only thing about them is like the Dogtra ones that we had are now older models and they didn't have a light. That's one of the benefits to e-collar technology is it has the light, but some of the newer models of Dogtra actually have lights built into them now. Chris taught me that, so I'll give him the credit. But I don't know. The remote's
and
weird to me,
and
so
the absolute biggest perk to the dog trail is it not only does it have the light now, but the newer models have a USB-C type charger.
that is beneficial too. That is
That
nice
is
versus the
that is
e-collar
the
technologies, which has these round ones. So if you
proprietary
lose a
charger.
charger, yeah, if you use those chargers and you lose those chargers, now I got to order them.
And about
I can
half the
order.
time, the Amazon knockoff ones don't work. So you got to order it from e-collar technology is about 3/4 of the time. It's yeah, the only reason that I upgraded to the new version of the Dogtra is specifically because of the Type C charger. That's it.
Which
There's
is
no other
handy
difference.
because you always have phone. Pretty much all phones are on a Type C charger now, so you
Yep.
can just plug it into your phone charger. Everybody's got one of those around, so that is a nice benefit. I will say though, e-collar technologies, their customer service is really good. We've had some issues with like one of mine, the battery just wouldn't stay charged, and they sent me a replacement battery to replace it, and it was really easy to swap out, take a couple screws out, take the old battery out, hook up the new one, bam, go about it. But again, that's what happens when you pay for a good quality e-collar versus getting a sport dog or something off of Amazon or Walmart. That's you get what you pay for when it comes to that.
Oh, that was a big thing with the random ones on Amazon too. I don't remember the specific brand. There was like two or three of them that were made in the same factory. And I warn my clients about this all the time. Your training tools are a buy once, cry once kind of thing. So is the Dogtra, 200, $220? Yes. I mean, what's a mini educator going for these days?
Probably about the same, especially with we always upgrade to the collars with the buckle and the bungee.
Yeah,
Uh, we won't get the regular ones because clients will mess up the size all the time and they'll be like, it's not working, and it's a necklace around the dog's neck. And I'm like, well,
right.
it's not making contact. So of course it's not. Whereas like the bungee, it's the right tightness, but it also flexes with the dog's neck. And then the buckle, you don't have to worry about changing the size. So I think it runs us probably like 230 with that upgrade.
Yeah, so can you get on Amazon and get one for $20? Yeah.
100%.
But one, you've got the inconsistency in the level. Like you said, one could you can't even feel it, two may lock your whole body up. But the biggest issue is not too long ago, there were several of the models that the quality control from those factories is so minimal that the lithium points inside of them were shifting when the dog would move and shake its head. And they would shift and end up exploding on the dog's neck. So think about it that way. When you look at stuff like your electronic trainers, things like that, do you want to spend $20 and potentially have an IED on your dog's neck? Or do you want to go ahead and just spend $200 and legitimately never have to worry about it again?
Yeah, it's one of those that it's worth investing in, especially if you're using it effectively. And to that point, though, another thing to look out for, regardless of what brand you're using, is, pressure sores. This is
Yep.
why we always warn our clients, one, that it's not too tight, but also, making sure you're taking it off, giving the dog breaks from it and rotating. So if it's on the right side of their neck one day, put it on the left side the next day. So that way it's not constantly in the same spot, putting pressure. We've also seen you got to pay attention to the contact points. Dogs have allergies just like us. Some of them are allergic to certain materials. Got to make sure that that we're paying attention and that they have the right kind of contact points on. And again, like a long-haired dog is going to need wingtips versus the regular contact points because they're not going to make contact appropriately. Short-haired dogs, they make contact points specifically for that. They have those hyperallergenic points for dogs that have the allergies. So making sure that you have the right points on there so you're not hurting your dog. We always warn our clients like, yeah, they're waterproof, the collars are, so you can take your dog swimming. We do it all the time. Take my dog swimming, let it be off leash, and I can still, call it back and such. But don't keep it on there when they're wet, because that's another way to have those issues. So again, great tool, but if you're using it wrong, you can really mess up your dog. And I think that's the consistent thing with all the training tools. Like there's pros and cons to every training tool, and you have to know how to effectively use it.
Yeah, I agree. And we do the same thing. We teach to switch back and forth. We place the collar the right behind the ear on either side instead of, on the side of the neck or on the throat where most of the manuals will tell you to put it.
Same.
So
It's either right here or right there, kind of on a person where that pressure point is. What is that pressure point?
yeah, it's when you grab your kid out in public on that shoulder muscle, that little pressure point up there, and you're like, man, me too. When we get home, when we get, yeah, that's the same concept when when we're tapping on that shoulder.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I think we covered pretty much all of the main training tools. And if you are using any training tools and you you're not sure if you're using them appropriately, find a trainer that knows what they're talking about, knows how to appropriately use those tools. And again, experience over certification. Just because they're a certified trainer doesn't mean that they have the experience in those tools. Like make sure you're getting good sound advice and using whatever training tools appropriately.
Hey,
But
something on that real quick before we move forward. When you meet your trainer, make sure that their experience matches what your goals are. I've met two different trainers recently that have come and talked to me, and they've trained plenty of dogs. They weren't a good fit for me or for my team, and that was very very evident. You know, talking to them, yeah, sounded great. Yeah, I mean, all the answers were right, everything was good. And then I said, "Cool, let's go grab a dog." And we grabbed one of the kennel dogs and we went out and started working on them. And it was very apparent that that certification spoke way louder than the ability. So it's you really need to make sure that that specific trainer can show you what they mean.
yeah, for sure. And we went through this recently. We hired another trainer. Again, looked good on paper, looked good in conversations, and then just was not a good fit. Like, sure, she had plenty of training under her belt, but the experience just didn't match up with what we were looking for our team and along with other traits. But she didn't have the experience in the areas that we have and that we need. And communication is a huge part. Like me handing you an e-collar saying your dog's e-collar trained. Here you go. Good luck. Well, I didn't teach you how to use it. Like we extensively teach our clients before the dog even goes home. We do 2 to 3 training sessions with the client before the dog even goes home, so that they can start learning all of the things that we've taught their dog. And then we have sessions on the back end if they're struggling, so we can make sure that everything transitions over. I have sheets that I send them with all the information because it's a lot to try to remember and take in. But then they have those cheat sheets with the notes of, okay, this is what this looks like. This is what that looks like. This is how I do this. This is how I do that. And they have that at their disposal so that they can have that success going forward. But yeah, so let's shift gears and let's talk about our topic for the night. You found this one, so lead us off.
Actually, I think that you should play the video that way they can hear at least a portion of it so they can kind of grasp a concept of what we're dealing with. The video is an attorney speaking about a situation with his client, and it's humorous from having knowledge with dogs. And this is exactly why attorneys bring expert witnesses into cases, because of just absolute asinine goofy stuff like this.
All right, and warning, there is a lot of profanity in this video, and this is the attorney speaking. So I'm gonna go ahead and play that for you.
Like my guy shows me his chest, and he's got these big holes in him, and he's telling me, yeah, man, when the dogs dragged me out, they had titanium enforced teeth, and I didn't think about it much. And then on my way home that day from the courthouse, I'm like, why the fuck do dogs have titanium enforced teeth for the cops? Why? It's like, okay, Adolf, now you can completely shred this man's testicles from his body. Titanium enforced teeth, that's your tax dollars going on a dog's teeth. And why? Like, I don't want dogs to have like dental pain. I believe me, I know. But why do they have titanium reinforced teeth? Why? So they can shred people from one limb to another so they can go out and kill chickens. What the fuck does a dog need titanium teeth for in any setting? So they can go and drag this guy's ass out of his house. And he probably had it coming, okay? Blackout drunk. Maybe there's a hostage situation going on. Maybe there's not. But titanium reinforced teeth. Just why? Why? Like, whose idea was this? Like who went back and said, our dogs aren't ripping people up hard enough. Helmut over here, I think he's in a little bit of dental pain. Let's get those teeth reinforced with some titanium. Yeah, that way he won't hurt. And meanwhile, human beings have holes that you can see their ribs on. I don't understand the titanium teeth. I don't understand it. I don't. I'm a taxpayer. I don't want that. So my guy shows me.
Oh my god. I'm gonna let you go first because all I gotta say is this dude's a fucking idiot. And why is he an attorney? But I'll pass that. I'll let you talk about it first.
Yeah, so I that is one of the few videos recently that I've watched a couple times in a row and been speechless every time. And looking at it, I don't understand why I'm speechless, because if you're not familiar with dogs, then you wouldn't understand that. But you're right. I mean, being what would appear, what I'm going to assume is a defense attorney, then you should probably have some basic understanding of procedure and standard operations. So, titanium is used in apprehension and protection dogs for dogs that have either gotten an injury to a tooth, lost a tooth, or in more rare cases, people that want to prevent that. So they just go ahead and put the titanium on there in the first place. More often than not, it's to replace a tooth or to repair an injury. So they'll cap it or they'll do a dental implant. They use titanium because it's biocompatible. The body doesn't recognize it as a foreign object, so it doesn't reject it. You don't have bone issues. You don't have any kind of infection issues. You don't need very much tooth to hold on to titanium. If they are going to cap it, it regulates temperature better, so it's healthier for the dog. To defend the fact that he says, hey, why, so this dog now has titanium teeth, so he can absolutely shred my client, specifically his client's testicles, for some reason, even though the holes were in his chest. Titanium implants and titanium caps, both, more often than not, are duller than the actual tooth was. So that would be the equivalent of me stabbing you with a spoon versus a fork. One of those two things is going to cause less damage. So, yes, they're strong. No, they're not being put on there to weaponize. Yes, they are expensive. However, you have to look at the average cost of a trained and certified patrol canine. And not only the cost, but the net value of that dog. A lot of people overlook the net value of the dog. So you're going to pay anywhere from 20 to 60 grand for an apprehension dog for your department. Then you're going to pay an insurance premium. Then you're going to pay a handler for his schooling. Then you're going to pay for certifications, and you're going to pay for equipment. That's a very large investment for a department.
Not to mention the experience of that dog once it's been on the street for a while.
Not to mention the experience and the value. But once you start getting into net worth, how much, if that's a full service dog and it's also done, narcotics detection, how much dope in street value has that dog been responsible for pulling off the street? Some of these busts these dogs are doing are in the millions. So you have a $40,000 dog, another $25,000 investment into the dog, because the handler has to get a stipend. There has to be vehicle upgrades. There has to be heat monitors. Has to put everything in there. And then your dog is pulling millions of dollars of dope off the street every year. And you're worried as a taxpayer about making sure that that asset's protected. That is no different than saying, hey, why the fuck are our police officers walking around in bulletproof vests? It's the exact same thing. Or why are we putting red dots on patrol officers' pistols now? It's because it's a liability reduction. You can acquire a target with a red dot more accurately and quickly than iron sights. That's why it's there. The titanium teeth, the titanium caps, they enhance the dog's ability.
So I'm sure you probably have a better answer to this than I do, but like, what is the cost of getting titanium implants or caps? That's really something I don't have a lot of experience with, so I'm sure you have a better answer.
It really just depends on if you're getting the implants or if you're getting the caps, and it depends on, where you're at, what you're doing. We had we had an individual that had a protection dog when I was in school that during training the dog ended up breaking a tooth, and he was like, no big deal. I'll just get him capped. I think he spent like 9 grand, but that's also in like the Atlanta area. So if you're looking at a crown, I mean, you're looking anywhere from like 1,500 to 5 grand probably. And if you're doing a full blown implant, then you're going to be looking anywhere from 2 grand to probably 9 or 10 grand. But you also have to take into the cost of like anesthesia and everything else that's going to be tacked onto that. So I would say probably safe zone, probably 3,500 for a cap and probably 10 grand for an implant.
So it's a pretty hefty, price. But again, that's a $40,000-$50,000 dog plus the investments and that value that dog has brought to the team. God, I'm just like, oh, it killed me when he's like, why? So they can go kill fucking chickens? I'm like, you're a fucking idiot, dude. Like,
Yeah, that's a
first
police
off, it
canine's
shouldn't.
primary purpose.
Yeah, like that police canine is not out there killing chickens. I promise you that, or it shouldn't be. But yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with that. It's protecting that asset. Like you said, the same as a bulletproof vest or, modernized weaponry. I'm just like, dude, like before you start spewing some bullshit that you don't have any knowledge on, like maybe do some research and don't be ignorant. Yeah, like titanium's not as sharp as their teeth, and even without that, dude, that dog's gonna do some damage if it bites, even if it didn't have titanium reinforced teeth. Like my dog will completely mess you up, and she's got regular teeth. Like
Oh yeah.
it's the bite force and all of those aspects that you got to take into consideration. Like, no, it's not so that, as he said, Adolf can go out here and rip off people's testicles. I'm like, he could do that with regular teeth. I promise you. It's about protecting that asset, and really that has no bearing on that case. I'm like, you're just trying to throw out stuff that you have no idea about. Maybe tell your client not to be a dumbass and make them send dogs on them. Like, it's not going to be a good day regardless for you.
Yeah, if the other counsel were to call in, if he took that to court and the other counsel called in an expert witness, he would absolutely be shredded in that courtroom for that.
Yeah, surprisingly, that attorney is in Texas. That caught me a little off guard. I was like, oh, I didn't expect that out of Texas. Must be from around Houston,
Yeah.
or Austin. But yeah, the titanium reinforced teeth, that doesn't make your dog more intense. It just protects your dog from potential injuries because their teeth, can get worn down over time just naturally, or heaven forbid it gets stuck and like breaks a tooth. It's about protecting that asset. Like, yeah, if I had to, I would do that for my dog. Like, I rather not because I don't want to spend that kind of money on teeth. But if I needed to, then yeah, I sure as heck would. But yeah, I guess it's the important part to note there is don't be an idiot, don't be ignorant, do your research before you try to blast some stuff that you have no knowledge or experience on. But yeah, I guess that's it. And we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.